first I need to give some disclosures because context is everything. The first is that I am a member of the Food Legislative Advisory Group. That's a body that assists the Directorate of Food Control in new food laws. The second thing is I'm being sued by Antiaging for 2 million rand. Third is I'm being sued by USN for 2 million rand, and I'm being sued by Antiaging for 300,000 rand. Now, with that in mind, this is a very famous neurosurgeon, Sergio Canavero, who on the 17th of November, the Telegraph reported that he had conducted the first human head transplant. It was a success, he claimed. Problem is, it was on a corpse. So it turns to pseudoscience, and the next 2 days are about pseudoscience, and this definition will come up over and over again. And we know that pseudoscience governs a range of areas, from climate change to anything, aviation industry, cold fusion. I'm focusing on medicines and therapeutic products. And I'm going to go down that way. And I liked what Tom had to say, and that is, his talk was the low level, not the high level. Now, I'm expecting everybody else to talk about the high level. I usually present on pseudoscience, how it manifests, how you avoid it, how pharmacology works, the pharmacological principles. In putting this together for this talk, I thought I needed to look at this differently because other people will probably cover that. And I thought, let me look at where we've come from and where we're going. And it's extremely depressing. What first got my attention was about 15 years ago when Global was selling this product called Bislim, Fat Attack, which said you can eat out and eat big and still lose weight by taking 1 tablet a day. And the active ingredient was chitosan. And at that stage, studies of up to 6,300 milligrams per day showed that it was significantly effective, but clinically totally ineffective. And I suddenly realized that I, as a medical doctor and scientist, didn't know enough, in spite of my training. And it set me off on a journey which I've been doing for all these years now, with collaborators like Prof. Roy Jobson, who's here, Nathan Geffen, and a range of others. This product uses 100 milligrams per day, substantially less. And chitosan traps fat, so you have to have it with each meal. They said you could have it with breakfast, so you're going to miss your most important meals. And so that set me off on a journey. And I found that the first port of call that was sort of effective was the ASA. And I want to go through some of those examples. I've laid around 250 to 300 complaints over the last 15 years. It gave me, I was branded by Hallmark as a consumer activist, which I initially thought was insulting, and then I thought it was complimentary. But subsequent, in the last 15 years, we've now had this splurge of over 155,000 complementary medicines in the market, and that was a stock taking and pronounced by the Minister of Health. Now, the part of the ASA and the MCC that I'm going to be talking about, Prof. Roy Jobson is going to be covering after me. I don't know what he's going to say, but I'm not focusing on that. I want to just make some points and go down the route. Now, I'm going to give some examples of the products because they're making a case that I want to illustrate. This is a Solal product, the anti-aging pill, that they claimed extends the life of every species it's given to. Professor David Sinclair. In fact, this was proven on earthworms, and it's being sold to humans. I contacted Prof. Sinclair, who said he doesn't want to speak out because he's been threatened by big companies, not South African companies. So researchers are being stifled and told, shut up, we're going to sell what you have initially found, and we will take it further. Now, get back into your cocoon. Herbex started with a small little company, and in 20 years they've advertised they're a leading weight loss producer of medicines in South Africa. When Big Pharma can't find a solution, how is it possible? Now, what they do is they put in a whole lot of what they call the Western herbals, and they claim that this is an effective weight loss product. None of their products have ever been tested on humans. And so you look at a product like this and you see, as a consumer, wow, there's a lot of stuff in there, it probably works. And these are really the only two that have had any research looking at weight loss. The others have absolutely no effect on weight loss. And if you're not a scientist, you wouldn't know that Herbex uses 1.7 milligrams, whereas studies use massive amounts and find it not to be effective. But Herbex claims it will work. And what they do is they get scientists or doctors to substantiate the product to the ASA. So this product came before the ASA, many of the complaints, and they find credible, so-called credible scientists, people who are either doctors or homeopaths, or doctors who became homeopaths, or even professors working at universities to say certain of these products work. Now, I've never gone after the if-ish products. I've always gone after the low-hanging fruit, those which is very, very clearly fraudulent, no evidence at all, or physiologically just impossible. Goodbye Cellulite is by Nivea. Nivea is one of the biggest companies in the world of selling these products. The Goodbye Cellulite cell cream, a complaint was made with this ASA, and Nivea responded with research. They didn't read the research because the research said that 55% of people said it doesn't work. ASA ruled against the product. The ASA got a professor of dermatology at UCT, flew overseas, she came back and said it worked. She'd seen absorption of L-carnitine through a dead pig skin in the laboratory, and that was good enough, it didn't have to be published. The ASA reversed the decision, and this product is still being sold today. Antiaging is a company that produces 4 complementary medicine products, including Antiaging. Now, they claim this combats insulin resistance and also results in weight loss. By coincidence, Dr. Sue Goldstein and I laid complaints with ASA. The ASA asked for evidence, and Antiaging supplied data that was seen by a professor of pharmacology and law and another professor, a physician who's also a member of the MCC, Medicine Control Council. And this was the results he looked at. He said, firstly, there were 10 studies, 7 did not have controls, 138 volunteers. There was no ethical approval or informed consent for this. The data was not good enough. And he made the point very clearly that if this data was submitted for registration purposes to Medicine Control Council or the ASA, serious barriers will cause a problem. That didn't stop. The ASA ruled against the product, and Antiaging has taken the ASA to court asking for, I think it was 19 million rand in damages because of blocking of advertising. And they've also obviously now gone after me. ImmuPro is also sold by a pathologist for testing allergy to see what you're allergic to. Every allergy foundation throughout the world, including South Africa, says there's no evidence that IgG testing works. It has a health risk. It has a severe risk of giving the wrong diagnosis and affecting health. The ASA has repeatedly ruled against this company. They carry on promoting their product. I've laid a complaint with the Health Professions Council that's come to naught, but it's now given rise to 3 or 4 other companies selling this type of testing in South Africa. Slim Coffee and Peel Away the Pounds and a number of other products are sold by Hallmark. These were all substantiated by a pharmacist who got her doctorate, who's now become a professor. She carried on substantiating these products in spite of the ASA seeing through and ruling against her, in spite of a study that she said for Slim Coffee that worked when we showed it was a fraudulent study. The research entity didn't exist. The street address didn't exist. She continues substantiating and standing by her findings, and she's continued to carry on substantiating other products. And as I said, she's now become a full professor. USN started some time ago with oxygen water, which they said oral oxygen is absorbed by diffusion osmosis through the cell linings of the gut, and it will do a lot of things like help you release toxins. You need to understand, as a consumer, you have to understand that oxygen is not absorbed through the gut. Now, there's been a few complaints and rulings against USN. These are some. They sell a range of things that the proof is either non-existent or the product is fraudulent, purely outrightly fraudulent. And what they do is, if the ASA rules against a product called Fat Block, they release it as fat binder. And if the ASA rules against fat binder, it becomes water slim. Same ingredient, slightly different claims. And worse, they've now released, and nobody knows about this, but it's on the website. They have a product called Sports Max, which goes after primary school and high school children. They argue that a diet is not good enough, that you can override your normal genetic and physiological principles, how quickly you grow and put on muscle. They've also started being the provider of nutritional information to schools, not dietitians or nutritionists or health professionals. Their team of experts go in and lectures at schools, and some of them are prominent. And the primary school or high school that sells the most of their product gets a free Bobby van Jaarsveld concert. Bobby van Jaarsveld is a shareholder in this company. So what do we learn from complaints to the ASA? Well, in many cases it was a withdrawal of advertising because the media was told not to accept advertising. But they cannot prevent the selling of the product. So you can prevent advertising it, but you carry on selling it. But many of the companies started ignoring the ASA rulings. And the media started ignoring ASA rulings. So even people like the chair of Caxton Publishers, who sits on the ASA committee, his magazines were starting to ignore ASA rulings. Carte Blanche ignores ASA rulings. Okay. What we know is over the last 15 years that precedents were set and the ASA got better at it. They started looking for evidence more clearly, more carefully. In most cases it was a slam dunk because they asked the company for evidence. The evidence couldn't come. They ruled against the company because there was no evidence. It wasn't a matter of opinion. In some cases, as I've shown you, it was, particularly Herbex. Herbex managed to find an array of doctors prepared to say these products work without any basis in a parallel universe, probably. So we learned quite a lot from... this has just gone flat. There.
Just use the keys on. I also have that problem. Just
Thank you.
Down arrow.
Right. And then what happened was there was a legal attack by Herbex and Tagelin. There's a lawyer who managed to get about 6 of these companies selling these scam products, and he represents them. It bankrupted, they say. They're in business rescue. But as you heard from Janusz, there was a Supreme Court of Appeal ruling which said they can exist, but right now they don't have the finances and they're having to recover. And in this time of 15 years, some companies that were no players or nothing at all have become massive companies who have the legal clout or the financial clout to fight back. And they fight everyone, including Department of Health. So the next thing we decided is, well, the ASA rules and then these rulings are buried. We needed to highlight that. And we developed a website or a blog called CAMcheck. And the rationale for it was very clear, to expose the ASA rulings so that people could go and do research. You use Google, does Antiaging work? Go to Google, CAMcheck, go and read their site, make up your own mind. It was a guide to the public. The idea was exposure would put pressure on those substantiating the products to work, to stop. In other words, Dr. Beverly Summers or Professor Beverly Summers will stop substantiating these products, even though we made it very clear what she was doing. Didn't prevent them. Only one substantiator stopped because he didn't want the publicity. Didn't work on any of the others. What was the outcomes? Well, some people were grateful. We got people saying thank you. We had people who would read through the whole blog on a particular thing like a skin cream and then say, where can I buy this? Many times. As I said, only one expert stopped substantiating products. And we were issued with a takedown notice, and we had to move our website offshore, which we didn't particularly want to do. And then the lawsuits to the ASA, to myself, and a number of people who were consumer activists, including Kevin Charleston, Prof. Roy Jobson, and others were threatened with lawsuits. So what we felt is, okay, we've got people who keep on substantiating these products. How do we get them to stop doing it? It's okay if it's a grey zone, if there's an alternate opinion, but if a product is clearly scam, what do you do? One of the things was to lay complaints with the Health Professions, Allied Health Professions Council, because these are doctors who are homeopaths also working in that field. The idea is that the health regulatory group that governs that particular segment will stand up and say this is unethical. We got nowhere. Not a single one was reprimanded. In fact, the complaints were dismissed, and some complaints were never attended to. We've had no outcomes 10 years down the line. What we did find is that one of the consultants to Herbex in some of their products is chair of the Allied Health Professions Council. We found that one of the homeopaths registered never completed his training, but he was substantiating a number of Herbex products. We then also laid complaints with the Health Professions Council of SA. This is looking after dietitians and orthodox doctors. It was against doctors substantiating Solal products. Proxygen is a tablet that's used in alluvial water. He claimed taking the tablet will put oxygen back into your bloodstream. This is a person who had run 200 studies in Britain before coming back to South Africa. He runs a company that has clinical trials, and he was prepared to stand by this. And then ImuPro, which is the doctor doing allergy testing. The Solal doctor selling anti-aging tablets and treatments that cure Alzheimer's and others was found not guilty. The others I've never had a result from. So there's no regulatory authority or effect. We've had complaints against 3 dietitians to the same body. The one was a dietitian who was chairperson of the Western Cape branch of the Dietetics Association of South Africa, who was substantiating or supporting Herbex products. We tried to negotiate with her. Somebody from the HPCA wrote to her and said this is unethical. She stood her ground. The complaint was laid and she was found guilty of unprofessional conduct about the only outcome. The others, still waiting. Nothing's ever happened. We've laid complaints against 3 pharmacists, including Dr. Beverly Summers, for substantiating a number of products. And what is interesting about these products is she substantiated them after they were deemed scams by the Federal Trade Commission in America. And that was pointed out in our arguments. The American FTC regard them as scams. We should as well. Her case was dismissed. The others have never been attended to. So we then moved to the media, because the media is supposed to comply with the ASA rulings. Well, we know that Frocure carried on taking adverts for Slimbetti and other products in spite of those rulings. It made absolutely no difference. We know the Burger and a number of other publications who did take a stand were threatened with legal action. We also know that Carte Blanche tended to ignore these adverts. I personally spoke to DST Advertising, who initially said that the body had decided to stop taking adverts, and within a few weeks started taking it. 3 weeks ago, Carte Blanche carried 4 adverts, of which 3 were for scam products, of which 2 were ruled previously by the SA. And that's the problem. If a credible, newsworthy organization, because Carte Blanche is regarded as fairly credible, mostly, takes these adverts, it gives a false illusion. We also wrote to Joy magazine, who took in a product for Slimbetti, and asked them to follow the SA rulings. They said they would not stop taking the advert, but they will pray for their readers. So we thought we should maybe move up. So we complained to the MCC, Medicine Control Council. In the last 15 years, I've put in complaints against AIDS, HIV cures. I've had no response, and those products were not taken off the market. I've laid complaints against banned substances in products, including Fuck or Fat. Beautiful name. No action was taken. To their credit, the ASA have taken action against 2 products at least, and this was after pressure from the media. One specific reporter, Antoinette Boyson. GNC, which is a sports supplement range like USN, was launched after the complementary medicine regulations were published. Months after. In other words, they gave a finger up to the MCC and said, we will bring out our product and do what we want, and we don't care what you want to do because you're not going to touch us. In March 2016, I laid a formal complaint against USN Federicat and Tagal and Herbex. I had acknowledgement of receipt for my complaints. Nothing's happened. We can go to DOH, Directorate Food Control. Now, they don't really look after CAMs, but we're starting to see companies like Herbex who have admitted in a presentation that they gave and didn't realize there was a reporter there, that they're going to try and pass their products off as foods. And here we've got a slimmer cereal product, which has now got complementary ingredients in. I think the box, they say infused with Garcinia. I think they mean they touch the box with it. The problem is this is illegal as a food and it's illegal as a CAM. And you heard the theoretical model that Janusz gave us. I'm giving you the practical effect of it. Slightly off, this is a bakery in Cape Town that for the last year has passed off gluten-free. They're selling wheat rolls, passing it off as gluten-free, banting products as gluten-free, wheat-free. It's not. We've tested in our lab over and over every month. I laid a complaint with the Directorate of Health, Director of Food Control, a year ago. It's now 13 months. No action's been taken. It's still being solved. Then escalated to National Consumer Commission, because this is now going higher, because the National Consumer Commission is in fact can override all laws if the laws aren't strong enough. And I laid a complaint against these 4 products. I met with them. I gave an oral presentation. I was informed that they were going to investigate these 4 groups. And the argument was simple. The ASA were asked them to supply information. They couldn't supply information. The evidence is there is no science to back up their claims. I was told that they're being investigated. 6 months later, I was told that they'd approached these groups, and the group simply said, we've got evidence, and they said, okay, and they backed off. In 2010, Prof. Roy Jobson got really fed up and he complained to Public Protector. Nothing's happened from that complaint. Dead in the water. So, we're faced with not a single regulatory body, except to a degree the ASA, working under very difficult areas and not responsible primarily for what's happening for us as doctors, health professionals, dietitians, regulators. No one wants to take ownership. No one wants to police. No one wants to enforce. The theory is beautiful. The practice is dismally depressing. And it led me on to the theory of the broken window theory, which is quite complex, but I'm going to just touch on briefly, which simply was a theory written based on an article written in 1982 by criminologists. And their argument was simply signs of a disorder will lead to more disorder. And it was basically the method or the mechanism that they applied to New York City to try and reduce crime. And the argument was simply that if you see broken windows, etc., people urinating in the street, disorder, it allows more crime to start developing. And if you start arresting everything, you bring it down. And that's the argument why the crime came down in New York. So a sense of neglect will pervade the area, which will turn implicitly invite more crime. And we're seeing that in this industry. We're seeing foods now making claims that are absolutely bizarre or non-existent. I also give talks, presentations to industry on food fraud. And there are products in the market advertised, well-known companies containing 4 cereals, and when you look at it, 2 of the cereals are less than 0.5%. So if no one is policing, nobody's taking action, you can start doing what you want. And we see that particularly where there's aggressive marketing of certain products, where people have to outrank or outpace another competitor. So what's the conclusions? Well, Roy Jobson and I wrote an article some years ago for the SAMJ looking at how the system's falling over. And we tongue-in-cheek said multiple organ failure. Multiple organ failure, for those that they don't know is when your body breaks down due to major shock, major sepsis, or so, all your organs fail. So we wrote an article called Multiple Organ Failure. Subsequent to that, I've been invited internationally to give talks on the real multiple organ failure. Story was missed. Vote was missed. But what I have done is I've understood how pseudoscience works, and I'm grateful for the next 2 days, because a lot of that's going to be fleshed out here. Pseudoscience rules because we're not standing up to it, we're not taking action, our regulatory bodies are doing nothing. There are no regulatory constraints, there's no policing. I also have received a number of support from a number of people, and I'm grateful for that, and that I really want to end with. Particularly Prof. Roy Jobson, Dr. Nathan, he's done his PhD, he's almost finished. Dr. Nathan Geffen is here, he was very active in the treatment action campaign, and what came up in the earlier talks was of belief systems and others. And the treatment action campaign particularly went after a church that was claiming they could pray and cure HIV/AIDS. And they took the route of the ASA. Prof. George Claassen has been very, very supportive in moral support, and also helping me assess resources. And these are my legal team. Janusz Luterek represents me in the Tagalin effect, and also all the way down to section 27. Thanks very much.